Maxis Gamer 7 and welcome back to another Sims 4 speed build video. This one is on a very small lot size. I want to say it's called 20 by 20 because I know there's 20 by 15. I think this is 20 by 20. I think this is like the more square size lot, but it is one of the smallest lot sizes. And if you know anything about how I am when it comes to my building, I rarely ever build on really small lots, and usually if I do, it at least has been more towards like community lot based. So building on a smaller lot was definitely a new challenge for me. If you watched my like the Iron Sound challenge, or not like Furnish Me challenge thing, she built the building and then people furnished it, and then she ended up like touring them all. That sort of helped me. I did that before I built this, and I actually mentioned in the voiceover that one because I did them very close to one another, and I'm taking a while to actually get this video out. I actually had like a whole bunch of videos recorded, and I just wasn't getting around to editing because editing's not my most favorite thing to do when it comes to the channel. Like, I don't mind it, but I don't necessarily love it either. So it takes a little bit for me to get into the thought process of actually editing, and it took me a bit. I'm finally editing all these videos because there's a bunch of them, so yeah, anyway, so it's been a while since that, but that sort of helped prepare me for this, because I at least got to furnish that one and get ready for having to do like in like little spaces and like all that stuff, which is something that I'm not used to. I usually make pretty big size builds, even when it's not necessarily necessary. Basically, as in like, I build something and then I'm like, oh, I'm afraid it's gonna be too big, and I'm like, nah, and then sometimes I end up making it bigger. I was like, actually, maybe it's too small, and then I make a room like bigger than it really needs to be, especially my bedrooms, but maybe that's just me wishing that I had a bigger bedroom. I so wish my bedroom was bigger, and if I could change my own personal house, I know what I would do. I would actually, because there's a hallway that goes past my room and what is now my art room, and then it goes back to like this little extra canning room thing. Well, that's what we call it because we put a lot of canned foods in there, but we don't use it that much anymore because we have some canned food stuff, but we just not enough to really have a whole room for it, really. And most of the stuff back there, I don't even know what's back there, to be honest with you. So if it was up to me, I would get rid of the hallway, extend the art room and my room just a little bit. Obviously, it wouldn't be adding much, but even just a little bit of more space to add my room, like to give to my room, just to make it a slightly more bigger, would be amazing. Because I'm the only person getting into my art room, and if really needed to, I can at least keep the hallway section part of where that extra room is back there, and leave that door so that you could get to the art room from another side, but also just having it connected into my bedroom, the door for it, would have been perfectly fine for me, because I'm really going to be the only one really needing to get into it, or me showing someone, and I'm okay with walking them through my bedroom to go show them. But that has nothing to do with this build. I seem to sometimes just get off on really random tangents, but anyway. But yeah, maybe that's why I make some, especially the bedrooms, big, because maybe I just wish I had a bigger room. But anyway, back to this build. So this build is, I did find like a little picture. Like most of my builds, the majority of them, I will mention that I took inspiration from something, and I think I have an album that has like 80 some pictures in it of random houses that I have found on like the internet, or like friends have sent them to me or something like that, that I may want to try to build. Now, some of them I take strong influence from just one build, and then some of them I take elements of different pictures and add them into a build. But I usually find when I at least have some sort of reference to go off of, even if I'm not seeing the whole house, just enough of a house to get like an idea of where to go, I think my houses usually turn out better. Now, recently I had built like a house fully on my own, not going off of any inspiration whatsoever, not even any inspiration from real life, because I've gotten into the habit where I start looking at houses anymore. At least if I'm like the passenger of the house, I'll stare out the window and look at houses and think about, in terms of Sims, could I recreate that, or is there an element of that house that would be really fun to add to a Sims house? Like, that's how bad it's gotten to this point. Like, I've been really enjoying building now, which I used to, like, not mind building, but I wasn't particularly fond of it because I thought I was not that great at it. Therefore, I was like, nah, it's fun, but not fun enough for me to actually fool with, because I don't think my builds come out well. I still don't think mine are anywhere near up there with a lot of people's, but I'm at least to the point where I can officially say that I am proud of most of my builds to a certain extent. Yeah, are they not, what? Let me try to make sure I phrase this right. Yeah, they're not super amazingly awesome that I think some people's are, but it is to the point I personally am proud of what I have somehow accomplished. I think it looks a lot better than I used to do, and I'm super happy with them, and I'm proud to have them on my channel and in my main save. So, I think I've come a long way compared to what it used to be, but I did finally build a house without reference and thought it looked great, so I'm happy. I think like building from reference has just helped me get better at building in general. But yeah, so I did have like a little picture of a house that I was going based off of to start this, but it was only the front half of it. Literally, it was only the front, so that's why the hedges are there, because this house definitely had hedges. I think technically the house would have been a little bit bigger than like the hedge size anyway, where I should have been able to add a little bit more. But I did at first, was like, the whole time I was like working on the build, I was like, what am I gonna do with these hedges where it looks like you could tell there's a gap. You can tell that there's like a little walkway or something back there. So I decided to make it like maybe like a little personal like garden or like a florist thing. So that's why I put the little florist table hidden in the hedges, and also a bunch of pots, so it makes it seem like whoever's living here is actually, has like a little side business where he or she makes arrangements and things like that. So that's what I decided to do with it, but for a while there I didn't know what I was gonna do. But you can't see them when you see like pictures and stuff of them, and I had a really hard time like taking pictures showing off that part of the hedges and also making the screenshot not look so boring at the same time. But whatever. This has, if I remember correctly, it is technically can be a family home. I think the way I ended up building it, it was a master bedroom and 2 smaller bedrooms, which could be, and obviously you could change them for your own personal use. So if you didn't want them to be like kids' bedrooms, you can either keep one a kid's bedroom and turn the other into like a hobby room or whatever. A lot of people, even in real life, they have houses that have bedrooms. Technically, they are, like, called bedrooms when you're trying to sell them, like, as a realtor. But they may turn it into, like, their home office, or, like, an art room, or something like that. So, you can easily turn it into whatever you want. But when building this, I actually didn't have any particular sim or anyone in mind. Sometimes I try to do that, and then sometimes I just decide to do whatever. But whenever I just pick random sims of mine, even if I have no plans of this sim moving in there, and at one point I was just literally like picking 2 random sims, had no idea if they would ever be living in the same house, but pick 2 random sims, take their personalities, and try to use it to decorate the house. So sometimes I would get interesting decorations that way, by doing it that way. But this one I had no particular sim style in mind, no sims of mine in mind, nothing like that. I was just basically building and decorating. And after doing the layout, it was a little, like, I have struggles doing the layout sometimes, especially with the smaller ones, because I'm like, I want, like, these particular things, and I want to make sure there's, like, bathrooms and all that stuff. My Sims have a lot of, like, get-togethers and stuff, and they tend to have bigger-sized families, so I'm always, like, bathrooms is a priority, and I feel like I have to make sure, and I can't stand that my house only has 2 of them, and one of them is not even a full bath, so it's like, it's a little bit of a struggle when family's over, and there's more than, like, 5 people in the house, so definitely sometimes I'm like, I must make sure there's enough bathrooms. Like, if you have guests over, they need somewhere to go, and what if you have to go at the same time, and then your other guest has to go as well? It's a struggle. So, I'm always like, I need to make sure I can get a bathroom here, so that, like, I just sometimes struggle with the layouts, and I feel like, I will say I struggle with the small builds like this, just because I feel like I can't fit everything I want to, like every built room that I want to in there. And then the one thing when it comes to the big builds, though I'm do really well on the outside and stuff like that, and once it gets down to it, fitting certain stuff, like stuff in certain rooms, I do good, but the layout of the part, then I'm like, when it gets too big, I'm like, what am I gonna do with this space? What am I doing with that space? What am I doing? What? And I have to come up with it on the go. Usually, with the big ones, it at least turns out well. I'm like, movie theater, hobby room, study, like all this stuff. I can just start making random rooms. But with the small ones, you can't do that. You actually have to make sure you have your priorities. Like, I have to have this room. I have to have this amount of room. So, it can be a struggle, but like I said, doing Ion Sounds Furnish Me did help when it came to this build, and I do want to try to do more small builds. I actually really want to try, like, making a teeny house, one that is, like, really, really small, but very functional. The only thing is like, something I like about teeny houses, a lot of times, like, the beds are, like, folded up, or they're up above, like, storage and a table and stuff, and that's really sort of hard to do the way that I want to make it more like a loft without going a full floor up, so still trying to make it look like a teeny home, but I do want to try to, like, give that a shot at some point, so... But first, I need to edit all the builds that I have right now. Like, I had 22 videos that have been recorded that had not been edited. Now, not all of those were builds, but I would say at least somewhere to 8 to 12 of those videos were builds. So I definitely know that I had more builds than I had of any other series. It's just I had a lot of other multiple series, my Fame Trio, Secrets in Bloom, the Eevee Family, The Forgotten. I think that's the main ones, because I currently don't have a cast series going on, which I'm bringing some cast back to the channel, which I'm excited about. But, so I didn't have any of that going on. But most of them were builds. So, and part of that is good and part of it isn't. Sometimes builds take a really long time to actually edit, though it's a slightly quicker process, because the way that I edit builds, I literally just gotta make sure that I cut out the parts where I stop building. So basically, I either get distracted by the music I'm listening to or the video that I am watching or whatever, so I have to cut those out, or when I have to go pee and I just leave it up. Make sure that just quickly scan through and find those dead zones and cut them out, and then if the video's too long, then, you know, I gotta cut out putting the lights and stuff like that up sometimes, depending. And so, in that sort of situation, it's not very long, but I actually have to sit there and go through hours upon hours of footage, and even though I'm scanning through it quickly, it still ends up being a real long time, and then I have to record the voiceover afterwards so that I know. I don't like recording the voiceovers beforehand, because I like knowing about where it's going to end. I never know exactly, because there is one final editing process after I add my voiceover. That sometimes shortens it a little bit, but not usually. The most that usually shortens it by is like a minute. So, But I usually, at least I have like a very close estimate of how long it's going to be by the time I go to do my voiceovers. So, that's a really long, in-depth story. I haven't really talked about the build too much. So, right now, you should be seeing the living room being made. I decided that even though the one thing is if you're someone, and purposely made sure that I could put curtains up on these, even though there's not technically a curtain on every window. It just, with the curtains that I had, I couldn't necessarily do that with totally darkening the room, because the room does get slightly darker when you put curtains on windows, which, I mean, technically makes sense. But I thought that this was a cool little area for people to sit in, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to put the TV here too, because the TV is not going to make any sense anywhere else, and this space is too little, because I always want to make sure that I have usually a computer or on a bookshelf space. I usually always make sure there's like some sort of music thing going on and a TV, just to give Sims something to do. Obviously, if you're wanting to use houses for different reasons, or you're doing like a rags to riches or something like that, you wouldn't immediately start with all those things. But just for my personal use and decorating during this, since I wasn't trying to do like a low budget house, I usually try to make sure that all those things are somewhere in the house. If I have a study, having the bookcase and the computer in the study is just fine. But since I didn't have enough space to do a study all on its own, the living room had to have all these objects in it. And I was like, there's no way that I can fit like another seating area with a TV to put the TV somewhere else. So I put it here, but TV and windows during the day don't mix very well. The glare that gets on them can be very annoying. I actually have my blinds shut at all times. And I also have they're sheer, but they're also dark colors. It's dark purple and there's no such thing as dark black, it's just black, technically. Which, if you've watched any of my Legend of Zelda, Tales of Berseria, any of those ones that are on consoles, my layout changes a little bit to record those, and you actually see my window. But I also have plastic over my window because the way my house was done, the lower section of my house, I admit, has more issues than the other section of my house, because this house was originally a double wide, and then when I came along, well, before I technically came along, but there was known existence of me. My mother was carrying me. So, there was the issue of there was nowhere to put me. Nowhere to put new baby. And they added a lower section on, and apparently it was a family member, like a distant family member, and their friends and stuff, that though they technically have, like, they had all the background stuff to be able to do stuff like this, they built it. And my mom always told me that she didn't think they did, like, a full great job on it, and later on, as the house got older, it is very obvious which section of the house has been having more issues. We had leak issues on this side, we had to change the roof, and about every single room there's leak spots in the ceilings, and in my room, in particular, in the art room, there's ceiling tiles that actually fell. Neither one of them are still fixed, which is really, really bad. And the windows aren't sealed very well. Our bay window that's down in the one living room, because we sort of have two living rooms in a way. It technically was a part of the original part, and they moved it, but in the process of moving it, it did not fare very well, and bugs get into my room. Like, we have tried to seal the outside of my window, and that scared me. Anyway, ignore that background noise. PlayStation, shut up. So basically, we technically need new windows. It's just the process of actually getting new windows is not something that my dad has done, but they don't seal very well. We've tried everything, and bugs get into my room if I don't keep the plastic up, so that's what my window looks like. Again, why do I get off on these tangents? This is stuff that y'all probably don't care to know, but guess what? Now you know. That's the whole story of... Not the whole story, but you know what I'm saying. Probably not. I don't know. I'm just randomly dang it! Rambling at this moment. But yeah, so that was like that room, and I had like little separate space for like the computer area, the bookcase, and I think it turned out really well. I think it looks very lived in. And I think that sometimes with smaller rooms that they almost end up looking more lived in, just because the fact that you can't, where you're cramming stuff together, it just gives it that more lived in feel. And the kitchen, which you can see here, it was also a little bit of a struggle because of the size of it as well. You can tell I was more of trying to go with a slightly older house. Like, it looks like it may have had a few updates, or it was taken good care of, or things like that. I'd imagine the stove and the dishwasher and all that stuff, that did not come with the original house, because the house, to me, I was sort of trying to go with an older feel. I do end up calling it the English Green Cottage, partially because, to me, again, I don't know the types of house very well. I can't tell you traditional from contemporary and all that stuff. I can sort of guess very well. Like, I can sort of figure out sometimes certain things leaning more towards modern or gothic or whatever. But to me, when I first seen it, the picture of my reference picture and even my build after I had it, after I did it, to me, it just seemed like it was like somewhere from over like England, European, those sort of things, but still leaning more towards like the England area or whatever. So that was, or like old houses from like colonial days, stuff like that. It just sort of more screamed like a house that is coming from that to me. I could be totally wrong, so don't judge me on that. And anyone who knows types of houses and styles and things like that very well, feel free to tell me in the comments below exactly what style of house this appears to actually be. But that's just, to me, that was the vibes that I got, and the fact with the ivy and like the hedges and stuff. That's why I ended up calling it the English Green Cottage. There's actually no color of green actually once you get inside the house, really, but you know, whatever, it's fine. So if you want to download this for your own personal use and save files and things like that, it will be on my gallery called the English Green Cottage. My origin ID is ArtisticGamer7, so you can go find this build as well as other builds that I've already done and will be doing in the future. If this is for some reason you cannot find it on the gallery, it probably either means dummy here forgot to upload it to the gallery, or sometimes the gallery is really weird about things. I haven't had any of my builds say they have CC in them when they don't actually have CC in them. I know a few people have that issue. I know I have one person who does the collabs, my monthly collabs a lot. A lot of her builds are being tossed into that CC category, even though she has no CC in the build. And that's Smurfette. And then I know just by watching Deligracy, a lot of hers end up saying they have CC in them, and they don't actually have CC in them. So it's really weird. I don't know why the gallery does that, but it appears that none of mine are. Though I do have a few builds that have CC in them, and they will show up if you enable CC if you do that. And all of my creative sims are CC use. So and if you want to see any of my sims, you would have to enable CC for those. But for most of my builds, I do try to steer clear from CC. I actually go and remove all of my CC out of my game while I go build, so that I'm not even remotely tempted. Because usually when I leave it in and I try to avoid it, I accidentally put it in. So, and then I gotta go investigate and figure out what item I put in the build that was actually CC. So, I did that like once or twice, but most of the time, I remember to take all of my CC out. So that's not even a thing that I want to do or something I do even on accident. So it is no CC, so you can download it without any custom content. Now, as far as the packs, I admit I don't usually pay attention to which packs that I use. I do want to eventually try to do something where I only use like a select few packs, and it makes it like easier for more people to download. Granted, if you still want to download this and you don't have all the packs in your game, you can click on it in the gallery and see what items come from what pack, and see if it's something you can probably easily replace with stuff that's already in the game, or if you have your own CC stuff, then you can replace it that way as well. If you ever do download any of my builds and you try to like refurnish them, like renovate them, which I do encourage, I am okay with you doing that as long as, you know, the original credit is due for the build itself. But if you want to renovate it and change it up a little bit, if there's certain things that you was like, oh, I want to try this for that build, feel free to do so. Definitely tweet me, and also put hashtag ArtisticGamer7 in the little description on the gallery, because I do want to eventually, if enough people start doing it, I definitely want to start doing like a series where I go through and see how y'all renovate some of my builds and stuff like that. So keep that in mind. If you ever have if there's ever a build of mine that you want to renovate, definitely remember to put that hashtag if you upload it on the gallery, and also let me know so that I know that it's up there. As for all of that being said and done. Oh, actually, one more thing. I will be using the hashtag ArtisticGamer7. I usually use Family Home. I do try to make sure that there's multiple ways to find it. If you can't find it, again, just get off contact with me on Twitter or comment down below or something like that if you cannot find it. I also am going to try to start putting the link in for the build from the internet's perspective, so when you go to search it online without going from the gallery and game. So I'm going to try to start doing that as well, so that it's easier for some people to find it. Plus, I know there are some people out there that their gallery is really struggles times. I don't know why it happens to some people, but I have encountered some people within the Sims community that either prefer to use the website in general, or their gallery just has issues, so they decide to just go that route. Anyway. But, back to the build. As you can tell, I am decorating the bedrooms here. I did go for more of like a teenager's room here. It is leaning more towards a girlish style or whatever, but I also decided that maybe this person who lives in this room is maybe thinking about going the actor route, hence the microphone in front of the mirrors and the big giant mirrors. Like, this may be a passion of theirs, is to be into acting and stuff like that. And then there is more of a more styled, like, young boy or boyish sort of room over in the other one. So basically more towards teen and kid type rooms. And then there's a master bedroom. There's 2 bathrooms up on the upper section and 1 bathroom on the lower section. The dining room, which has already been shown, had mostly dark woods with some yellow, which I thought the yellow actually popped. And I normally don't go for the color yellow. I'm not like a big yellow fan. Like, I like it to a certain extent, but it's not typically a color I lean towards. So I definitely was actually really liking the use of yellow in that case. I actually thought it turned out really, really well. So there is that. But like I said, I was trying to go with looking like more of like an older style house. Like, even though some things may have been upgraded, that maybe the people who own this house were still trying to keep some of that older like charm. Of course, once you get into the bedrooms, all of that is basically thrown out the windows. But again, I have the most fun with the bedrooms. To me, the bedrooms is where people can where I can express like a personality that a sim that may be living here has more likely, and I love doing the bedrooms so much more, just because I can go a little bit more clutter crazy, more personality crazy. Like, the rest of the house does show some personality, but I feel like the bedrooms is where your personality is going to shine through the most, especially if you're like a child that lives in this house, or like maybe even like if your mother comes and lives back and like moves back in with like one of her kids or something like that. So basically all the rooms that are not the master, because usually whoever has the master is like the main owner of the house. Therefore, they're usually the person who decorates all of the house except for the other bedrooms. So I think a lot of times, like with the kids' bedrooms or the possibly the in-laws' bedrooms, whatever it may be, which I actually haven't ever took it to a bedroom towards a direction where maybe like a parent does move back in with their kids and they're staying in one of the bedrooms that was meant to be like a guest bedroom or kids. So maybe I should do that sometime. Maybe that'd be something interesting to actually do. But you know what I'm going with. Like, those rooms tend to be the ones that I could go super crazy on, because who's in the master bedroom, at least for me personally, usually whoever's in the master bedroom, their personality is already shining through just a little bit, or how they sort of style their house, or how they like styling their house. Though the bigger personality part of them will still be in their bedroom. And also sometimes there's two people sharing a master bedroom as well, so sometimes it's multiple personalities in that room. But I do remember with this master bedroom, I struggled a bit because I thought, since this was more of an older style house, most older style houses had a fireplace at some point in time. I was originally thinking about putting one down in the living room, but then I changed my mind. Maybe it used to be there and they've just removed it, because in more modern days, it is to the point where, you have a heating and cooling system, but fireplaces are still nice, and I think fireplaces also add some of that romantic touch. So I decided that maybe the fireplace got left when it came to the master bedroom, so it's sort of like that little romantic place for the couple to go and sit and like chill by the fire. But since I wanted to put that fireplace in there, trying to fit all the other furniture in there, and to a point that I thought the actual Sims could move around in it, was pretty hard. Sometimes I try to remember to test stuff when there's certain things that are a little iffy, but I did not test this house before doing this voiceover. So I don't 100% know if the Sims can walk between that table and the bed. To me, it looks like enough room to walk in between there, and also the love seat and the bed. But Sims can be very, very finicky and very, very weird. So just keep that in mind. I'm almost more sure that they can walk in between the bed and the table, more so the love seat and the bed, but you can always change that into like one chair, and maybe the other person just sits on the bedroom on the bed, or maybe both Sims sit on the bed, because the bed is like close enough to the fireplace that you can feel the warmth off on it, but not so close that it hopefully doesn't catch on fire. Like, that's the only thing with like my fireplaces. Like, I don't put them in too many builds, but I've started to get to the point where I do put them in more builds, because I actually really like fireplaces. I have never had a family member that I can remember off the top of my head that has a full-on actual fireplace. My grandparents have like this fire furnace type thing where you actually put wood in it and burn it, but it heats the whole entire house, but it's not like an actual fireplace. And technically my brother and my sister-in-law have a fireplace. And here's the screenshots. I've talked for so long. But they do have a fireplace, and they decorate it, and it looks really pretty decorated. That's another thing I like about fireplaces, actually decorating the mantles. But they don't actually use it for like actual fire, like fire. For like, you would do for a fireplace. But I like the actual fireplace when it's on fire. So I do like them, and I am starting to use them more often. But, hopefully the Sims can move around in there perfectly fine. But as you can tell, it is the end of the build. I have literally rambled on for so long that we've gotten to the screenshots. Now, granted, this video is only like 34 minutes long, so it was a chance for me to get everything said, but sometimes I end up rambling and sometimes I don't. But I hope you have enjoyed this build. I did really like how it turned out. It was more of a challenge for me compared to some of the other builds I've done, just because of the small size. But I like challenging myself, and like I said, in the end, I was actually really happy with how it turned out. I still think I need to get better at decorating the walls, but to me, I feel like sometimes when I try to put stuff on the walls, the walls start looking like too much. Yet, this is the person who literally has like 1,000 things on every single wall in her room that is saying this, but whatever. Something about in The Sims, I'm like, is it too much? I'm not really sure. I feel like it might be. So... yeah, but I think I do need to try to get a little better on actually adding a bunch of stuff to the walls more often. But let me know down in the comments below if you like this house, and if so, what is your favorite part about the house? Is it a particular room? Is there some things going on in the house? Definitely let me know down in the comments below. Again, it will be up on the gallery if I forget. Just remind me over on Twitter, or you comment down below. All of my social media, and of course, including my Twitter, will be down in the description below, so if you're not following me on those, you can go ahead and do so. Also, make sure you're subscribed so that you don't miss the next speed build or whatever it may be. Like the video, all that lovely YouTube goodiness. Shush. Again, thank you so much for watching. I will say that 10 million times in a video, but I truly, truly do mean it. But I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye!